Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. Hope you guys are all doing well. It's time for the view from the opposition. But first, just want to say a big thanks to NORD VPN, our sponsors of the Everything is Black and White podcast. And they are offering our viewers and listeners a very special discounted offer on their NORD VPN plans. Simply hit the link in the podcast description box or go to nordvpn.com/tune and take advantage of this offer. There's a host of benefits. Not only does this keep your bank details and all your personal details safe and secure when you are signed up to Nord, you can also keep up to date with all your favorite TV programs if you are on holiday. If you're lucky enough to be in Spain or Italy, you can change your location back to the UK and never miss your favorite TV shows. And if you've got all the relevant sport package subscriptions, it means you'll never miss a live televised game because, once again, change that location. Jobs are good. And so do hit the link in the podcast description box and take advantage of a NordVPN discount. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. You're keeping yourself safe, you're keeping yourself secure, and you're supporting the podcast at the same time. And it is greatly appreciated. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, I've got a huge favor to ask you. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. It's totally free to do so. And it just means with every new episode we upload, you'll get a notification. In the last 28 days, a massive 61% of you guys have not been subscribed to the channel. It makes a huge difference. It means our shows can continue to be free for all your viewing and listening pleasures. We need you to hit subscribe. We really, really do. I know it's a bit of a begging letter, so to speak, but do consider hitting subscribe to the channel. It would really mean a lot. Time for the view from the opposition, talking about Aston Villa. Hit the titles. Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It's time for the first view from the opposition of the season. This week joined by Dan Rowlandson from the Claret and Blue Podcast covering Aston Villa. Newcastle head down to Villa Park on Saturday to start their campaign. And it's fair to say, well, actually, Newcastle's summer is starting to pick up while Aston Villa's summer continues to rumble on at a rather slow pace, thanks to good old PSR. And we'll get into that later in the show. But first things first, Dan, how are we doing? You well?
I'm very well indeed. Yeah, all the more better now for your catchy intro music. A nice little bop for the first 20 seconds there. Good fun.
Everyone does. Everyone has a little good dance as we get into things,
Nice.
which is nice. It's probably the only positive that I'm going to be talking about in this episode because I don't like when Newcastle head to Villa Park. I don't really like facing Aston Villa, to be quite honest. They've not got the best of records down at your place. How are you looking at this game? What are you expecting from it?
So I'm exactly the opposite for the other way around. If this was at St James's, I'd be feeling exactly the same way. It seems to be over the last few years that we beat you at our place pretty comfortably, and then you do the return at your place as well. So when the fixtures came out, Newcastle United first game, tough that is. And to be fair, when we did the fixture announcement, we did that as a podcast on our channel where John, our Villa reporter, he knew the fixtures, but I didn't. So I went into it like blind. And he said Newcastle first day, and I was like, "Oh, St James's? No, surely not." At Villa Park, he's like, "Oh, okay, that's better." So I'm kind of certainly more comfortable that we're at home, and I think Opta has us down as having the easiest start to the opening few fixtures, which ultimately doesn't mean anything. But if Villa are to get off to a good start and keep up the tradition of beating Newcastle at Villa Park, that will hopefully set Villa up to a decent opening couple of weeks of the season. But it's going to be tough. Still going to be tough.
Newcastle have lost 5 of the last 6 Premier League away games against Aston Villa, with the exception being the 3-1 victory back in January 2024. And Villa are unbeaten in the last 21 home games in all competitions, winning the last 8 in a row, which is their longest run without a defeat at Villa Park since, between September 76 and May 77. So things are going quite well at home for Aston Villa. I like a good start, although I don't like that last one because
just to extend that, by the way, if Villa avoid defeat on Saturday, it will be over 365 days since their previous Premier League defeat, which was the opening fixture at Villa Park last season. We lost to Arsenal, and we should have beat them, to be fair, on that day. So we only lost one in the Premier League at home all last season, and it was the first game. So hopefully history doesn't repeat itself and we go a whole year without losing a game there.
Imagine that. That'd be some going if that did happen. But I am a little bit more positive coming into this game than had it been a few weeks ago, simply because Newcastle United have started to pick up in transfer market. I mean, as it is, only Anthony Elanga is up for a start on Saturday at Villa Park. Aaron Ramsdale will most likely be on the bench. Can't see anyhow dropping Nick Pope for this game. But I think just the fact that Newcastle United are starting to make moves in the transfer market, they've signed Malik Chiao, who will most likely be on the bench as well, actually. Jacob Ramsey's having his medical, and we'll get onto him in a moment. I think what that does is it just gives a little bit of confidence. It changes the mood within the fan base and, of course, within the camp that actually things are starting to happen. On the flip side, down with you guys, I mean, losing Jacob Ramsey is something that's been forced upon the club, I would assume, thanks to PSR. And, they haven't made too many signings this window. Does that impact the mood, you think, or is the spirit good enough that it doesn't really have too much of an impact on things?
Well, I can only speak for myself, of course, and I don't know how many Villa fans will stumble upon this video, but some, I think, may feel a little bit of trepidation heading into the season that we are weaker than we finished it. No Rashford, no Asensio, although we've been linked with getting Asensio back again, to be fair. Leon Bailey, as we record this, is still here, but we've talked about him potentially leaving the club all summer. Jacob Ramsey, of course, now leaving as well, which was a little bit of a surprise. But has had interest from Newcastle and Eddie Howe for a long time, to be fair. But we've still got Watkins, got Kamara on a new contract. Youri Tielemans is still there. Anana, Matson, Konsa, Torres, Martinez, who was in tears at the final home game of the last season. I don't know whether you remember. So that the expectation was he's probably leaving. So the way I see it is the players that Villa want to keep and Emery wanted to keep are still here. And that squad, minus Rashford and Ramsey as it stands, missed out on the Champions League last year on goal difference. So nothing's really changed for me in terms of the mood. I still think we've got a good squad with a great manager that with some kind of cohesion. So I'm hopeful that Villa can still put a run together because they've still got that nucleus of a squad there. As it stands, we've had Robin Olsen leave and Marco Bizot come in as the replacement goalkeeper, and Ramsey out and Evon Gesson in. They don't play the same position, but they're forward options. Now, Ramsey last season scored 1 Premier League goal, I think, or 2. So I don't want to boil it down to just goals, but if Gesson scores more than 2, we've kind of replaced Ramsey's output for less than we're getting from you guys for him in terms of transfer fee. So I think there is a little bit of trepidation and some kind of doom and gloom about, we've not spent enough and we're being hamstrung by the rules. But I see something in that continuity of we've kept hold of the players that we want to keep. There's some bloody good players in that squad. And yes, the others around us may have improved because they've made transfers, but Villa are in a pretty good place, I think. And I think any kind of pre-season worries would immediately be quashed by beating Newcastle. I think that'd be a big step to be like, okay, well, we're still okay here then. There's still a good side here.
Talk to me then briefly just about Jacob Ramsey, because you're kindly going to come on next week to do a bit more of an in-depth episode on him. I mean, the price tag, it's going to be well above 40 million with add-ons, which I think has caught a few by surprise, really. But in terms of the player that Newcastle United are getting, how far can he go, and what do you make of the signing?
I think it's a good signing, to be fair, for Newcastle. I'm not immediately sure where he slots in, if he's going to play in one of the forward positions off the left where he's played for Villa, or I think he probably could play the left-sided midfielder in a midfield 3, possibly. Saw Jack Grealish play that role for Villa in the Championship, like a left 8, I suppose you'd call it. I think Ramsey has elements of his game where he could do that. I'm not convinced on whether his physicality is as good as what some of the Newcastle side has. I don't associate him as that player as being big and strong, and he has elements of that, but he's still quite slight and kind of nippy and quick. So whether he fits in from a style perspective remains to be seen. I think the thing with this for me is if Ramsey stayed at Villa, I'm happy with that because I think there's a good player in there. But I'm also not kind of having my heart pulled out of my chest by the fact he's left either. I think we talk a lot about him. Well, there's still some potential there with Ramsey. Like he could still grow into a good player. You kind of think, well, when he's yours, you go, well, yeah, of course. When he leaves, you go, Well, he's 24. He's played lots of appearances now in the Premier League, in Europe, in the Champions League. How long can you talk about potential? Do you know what I mean? Like, surely you've got to have hit something by now. And the fact that you couple that with some injury concerns from, what year was it? 2022, I think. It was the year where the Euros was the year after, I think. He played in the under-21s with England and did his ankle. Came back with Villa and struggled and missed lots of that season. Kind of got over that a bit last year and featured in a lot more games, but has never been consistent enough and never had the output either. So I think if you've got a player there who, yeah, it's homegrown, he's a Villa fan, come through the academy, you want those players in your side. If you take that away, this is a player that struggled with injury, doesn't want to sign a new contract, isn't contributing goals and assists, and you get 40 million for. I think you add all those things together and it makes it much more palatable. And I'm not saying you've got a bad player here, by the way, but just like I'm okay with it. Like, it's a transfer. It feels like we're okay with the fee. You've got a decent player. We're all kind of happy.
And when you come on next week, I want a bit more positivity. It's the best signing Newcastle have made this summer.
Maybe John can do that.
You mentioned the striker that you've signed from Ligue 1, Guirassy. And I'm a little bit surprised, actually, that Newcastle haven't gone into that sort of market because there's been quite a few players in France who've had maybe one or two prolific seasons who cost a lot less than, say, your Benjamin Sesko's or your I don't know, your Brian Mbeumo's, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, this chap has quite a good reputation. Obviously, the transition from Ligue 1 to the Premier League isn't the easiest one to make. But I mean, first off, are you happy with that signing? And secondly, do you think he'll feature on Saturday?
Oh, I don't think he'll start on Saturday. Yeah, I'd be surprised if he gets thrown straight in at the deep end. Emery signings tend not to. Yeah, I think he's going to be a good player. I've got him down as more like one to watch this season. I think if he's successful at Villa, it'll be one of those signings that other clubs would look at as, oh, actually, you know what? He was decent. He was. Why didn't we go for him? And that's obviously easy to say with hindsight, but I think it does kind of tap into that market of the player, the tier below the elite ones. So Guesson's not going to go to Man City or Liverpool or Arsenal for 65 million, but he could come to Villa, Newcastle, Tottenham, maybe an upwardly mobile club like a Palace or a Brighton that's going to try and punch above for 25 to 30. And that's what Villa have got him for. I think just shy of 30 million with add-ons as well. He's had one good season, really, last year. So obviously there's a little bit of doubt whether that's something he can continue with. The player that he's probably replacing, Leon Bailey, has had one good year with Villa. You know, that doesn't really mean anything. He's had 3 poor years. So it remains to be seen whether he fits. The podcast that we've done, kind of the tactical expert look at him, said that the physicality of the Ligue 1 probably will translate to the Premier League, and that it's kind of over-hated maybe a little bit. League One's a bit of a pony league. You know, you've only got PSG and whatever. Whereas actually it is quite competitive and physical, and obviously elements that will work in the Premier League. So again, I think a successful season for him. It's hard to nail down what that is, because I think if you go through Villa's 11, you've got Ollie Watkins plays up front pretty much all of the time. Touch wood, never injured. Famous last words. He's your striker, right? We had a little bit of doubt over that last year with Rashford coming in and starting up front and Watkins on the bench in big Champions League games, but that's not going to happen this season, at least as of Friday the 15th. So you've got him up front, but then you've got 3 behind him that Villa play with. Now, Villa have got 5 or 6 players that goes into those 3 positions. One of them would have been Ramsey off the left, which obviously will no longer happen. You've got Morgan Rogers, Daniel Marlon, who was signed in January and didn't feature much. So I hate to say it, but he's like a new signing because he didn't play at all, really. You've got John McGinn, who can pretty much play anywhere behind that forward as well. You've got Emery Buendia still at the moment, Leon Bailey, and Guesson. So you've got 5 or 6 players there behind. So I don't know if you can necessarily say that Guesson, if he needs to get 10 goals to be seen as a successful signing. Because if he helps contribute to that unit behind Watkins, he might not chip in with loads of goals and assists, but if he helps the unit, and that's kind of what you want from Ramsey, right? He's not contributing goals and assists, but he is at least putting a run together where he's helping the unit. And he wasn't really doing that. So Guesson hasn't got like massive boots to fill, but obviously you can't go through a season where you spend 30 million on somebody and they get 2 or 3 goals. Like, you have to contribute to a certain level.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by him. I've got him in my fantasy team. as well. Costs a little bit less than the others. Hopefully, though, he scores absolutely nothing on Saturday evening.
I don't think he'll play, to be honest.
There you go. Well, it's a waste of a transfer for me then. Talk to us about the potential starting 11. Am I right in thinking Martinez is suspended?
Yeah, Martinez suspended. We still don't know as of yet whether it's 1 game or 3. There's still some doubt about it. I think it's just 1. But because I seem to remember the FPL, I don't play it this year. Somebody posted a screenshot from FPL that Martinez was back on the 23rd, which is Brentford next week. John got a line from the FA saying like, "Oh, here's what red card suspensions are. It should be 1." So it's not really like definitive. No one's really cleared it up yet. Emery's presser is today, so whether it gets found out today, I don't know. But yeah, it's definitely 1 at least. So he's missing Newcastle. That's all you really care about. So it'll be Bizot in goal, making his Premier League debut, which sends the jitters up me a little bit. But he seems better than Robin Olsen, so that's already an improvement for summer business. So Matty Cash right back, Konsa right centre back. It's between Mings or Torres, and we had this all of last season. Which player is better for each opposition and whatnot? I think it'll be Torres at home, although I love Mings' physicality and I'd prefer Mings, but I think it will be Torres. Dean or Maatsen, I want to come back to you on in a second. I think the midfield could probably be Kamara and Onana and Tielemans further forward. If not, Kamara and Tielemans as the pivot. And then Ollie Watkins up front, absolutely nailed on. And the 3 behind, Rodgers, McGinn, and if Onana's playing, Tielemans will be further forward as well. Now, whether that puts Rodgers out wide where he's not as effective, I don't know. Maybe McGinn off the left, Tielemans at the 10, and McGinn on the right, potentially. If Tielemans plays further back with Kamara, you'd probably have possibly Gesson, McGinn, and Rodgers. But of the new signings, I think Marlon is probably more likely to start than Gesson because at least he has been here since January and knows the Emery system and stuff. So what I'm trying to say is Villa have options, and there's probably a couple of variations of 11s that Villa could put out that we'd go, actually, that looks all right. So the one at left back, Luca Dean signed a new contract and was very good last season, but we've obviously spent a lot of money on Ian Maatsen 12 months ago, and he's kind of one for the future maybe, but he's also good now. What would you kind of like to see from your side? Because he's going to play on Alanga's side, right? So the pace of Maatsen to deal with Alanga maybe, or the kind of experience of Dean to shut him out. Like I can't decide which is better for Villa.
I'd say Dean. I think you need that experience, that kind of wise head on the shoulders to try and stop.
If he'll get done for pace too often though.
Yeah, Alanga, his pace is just, it's scary. I mean, I've only seen him once in the flesh, but it was last Saturday against Atletico Madrid, and he was just having the fullback for breakfast, dinner, and tea. It was a joy to watch, and hopefully that can transition into the Premier League and a competitive match day. But yeah, the pace is going to be key here for Newcastle, I think, especially on both wings. It's frustrating to a degree that Newcastle are going to have to play Anthony Gordon up front and not on the left. But then Harvey Barnes has had a good pre-season.
Always scores against us as well.
There we go. So it's I think the biggest blow with that is that you're playing Anthony Gordon up top, and he's not an out-and-out striker. As much as he can put in all the work and all the effort, it's noticeable Newcastle are much weaker because they haven't got a striker to play up top. So that'll be a huge boost, I think, for Aston Villa. But I think the pace that Newcastle have on both flanks, the pace of Gordon, it's going to be a really difficult day, I think, defensive-wise for Aston Villa. But it's we've seen, these two teams can frustrate one another. At Villa Park, Villa seem to get the better of Newcastle.
We've seen in pre-season that Villa, it's only a couple of games, and how much you read into it is up to you. But we've seen Villa wanting to press high and press aggressively. Now at home, if Villa are on the front foot and do that, I mean, there was the game a couple of years ago, wasn't there, when Villa was it 3 up after like 20 minutes or something? If we're on that kind of form again, game's done, right, and whatever. I think the first goal is massively important in that sense, but I'd be really worried about Newcastle on the counter. That if we are pressing high, all it takes is a long ball over the top. Pau Torres not great in the air. Luca Dean not very quick. Alanga's in behind, squares it to Gordon. 1-0 Newcastle full time. That would concern me. Do you reckon Alanga's more of a kind of touchline hugger, or does he want to come inside? Do you think?
I'd say he's more of a touchline hugger because I think he wants to get down the byline and put the ball into the box. But whether that kind of changes because of the fact there isn't an out
proper focal point there to put it to.
Yeah. I'm not too sure, but I mean the key with him is going to be that counter attacking pace that he brings. If Newcastle are a little bit penned in, but then they stop the Villa attack, and then the space is there for him to run in. We all remember the goal he scored against Manchester United last season, where he was just unstoppable. And I think John Gibson on our match preview said that this game is built for Elanga simply because Villa will press high. They're going to have the majority of the ball, and it's all about Newcastle United, staying strong at the back line and then that kind of defensive third, and then setting away Elanga or Barnes or Gordon as well through the centre. So I think that's the threat I would look out for if I was Unai Emery and Villa. I think Newcastle, though, especially in recent seasons, and we saw that at Villa Park last time out, that if they get overrun in midfield, then there's an issue. I remember Ollie Watkins in particular, given that kind of Newcastle's right-hand side of really tough going was it April, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah. He looks really sharp, Watkins, by the way, in pre-season. He looks really up for it. He scored either 4 in 5 or 5 in 5, a couple of headers as well, real nice headers. And again, it's pre-season, but we had a few players last year that didn't either have much of a pre-season or one at all and look rusty. One of those being Watkins, obviously the international tournament, no real proper pre-season playing with Aston Villa. Comes in that first game or first home game against Arsenal, I referenced last year when I felt like we should have won. Watkins missed 2 sitters in that when he's fired up and in form, he scores both, and Villa do win that game. And that potentially changes our season. But he looks really sharp in pre-season so far. So I'm kind of backing Watkins for one of his best seasons in a Villa shirt. And if his kind of pre-season form carries on, he'd absolutely be down that if Villa were to score at the weekend, Watkins is a shoe-in for me.
I think that's my biggest concern, is because he just was so good in that game against Newcastle in April, and Newcastle, for whatever reason, just didn't change it. And I think it was Jason Tyndall actually was in charge because Eddie Howe obviously had the illness.
Yeah.
But I was sitting there and thinking there was a chance very early on which Watkins should have scored, and then I think it was the second and third goal. There was another chance, whatever, and it was the same play. It was down the right, in between the spaces of the full back and Fabian Schär. And you're just thinking, why hasn't anyone done anything about that?
Yeah,
You
it
can
looks so
see what
easy.
we're going to do. So hopefully, A, Newcastle don't fall in that trap again, and if B, they do the first time it happens, and suddenly there is a change in approach or formation, and they can stop it. Because as good as Villa were that day, it was partly brought on by the fact that Newcastle United was so useless in defence, and for whatever reason, tactically they didn't stop the plan of Villa, which obviously is easier said than done. But I am worried about Watkins because he seems to have a bit of a point to prove as well. Obviously, he's been linked to Arsenal, linked to Newcastle as well. So it looks like it could be one of those seasons, obviously with the World Cup coming up as well, where he's going to have a point to prove. I mean, in terms of pre-season, just run us through how it's gone for you guys.
A mixed bag. I think I've not watched hardly any of the actual games. I mean, a lot of them were happening in America in the early hours of the morning. So Villa started their pre-season with their annual trip to Warsaw, as they always do, which we lost. And it was a bit like, oh no, we're in trouble here. And it was like kids playing and stuff. We had a game against a German team, which we either drew or lost as well, I think. I genuinely can't remember some of these results. I think
Have you won a game? Is that the main
Oh, yeah,
thing?
we've won a couple. Yeah.
You don't need to win games in pre-season.
It don't matter anyway, does it? Generally doesn't.
Newcastle haven't won a game. They drew against Espanyol. Got beat.
We had a chat with John, and he was talking about pre-season, and the only one that we've kind of flagged as a maybe was Forest, and I don't know what their most recent one was, but when me and John had this chat maybe a week ago, they hadn't actually scored a goal in pre-season, Forest, and that's a bit different. I think if you drew 2-2 against Marseille or whoever Villa played or whatever, it's whatever. Like, as long as your players are clicking into gear and scoring a couple of goals and look okay, the result is irrelevant. But Forest, like, not to have scored a goal, was like, oh, okay, is there something there? I've seen quotes of that actually from Nuno saying that they're just not ready for the season. So whether our transfer windows have been good or not, having your manager come out being like, yeah, we're just not ready for this is not a great look. So I kind of worry for Forest a little bit, actually.
A bit brutal honesty there from Nuno. But yeah, I think the other thing to say about that, there were positives in some performances from Newcastle. I mean, they look really good against Atletico Madrid in the first half in particular, but they've obviously been distracted by Alexander Isak, and
Weird
frustrations in
situation,
the
isn't it?
window as well have not helped. But I think, like the point I made right at the start, I think the fact that things have started to happen, I think that will elevate the squad just in terms of that spirit. Even if two of the players don't feature, I think just the fact there's new faces in for the first time in 3 years or 3 windows will make a huge difference to the spirit. And I mean, it was already good. There's a really good team morale. I don't even think the Alexander Isak stuff has impacted them too much. I think there will be a question of what is going on, but I think just to see new faces will make a huge boost to Newcastle. We've already mentioned it briefly, but we expect Villa to press high and dominate the ball on Saturday.
I think so. Yeah, I'd be surprised if that wasn't the case. That's what we've seen in pre-season a little bit, and you've got to take the game to the opponent at home. I always feel like so. I don't know whether you want me to do a score prediction yet, but it's kind of. I think we are gearing towards a high-scoring game from both sides potentially. But I think Villa will be full on and at it and ready from the first whistle, because we also feel like we have a point to prove, I think.
So before you do give us a score prediction, Dan, just give me the biggest weakness that Newcastle can exploit. Come on, share the secret.
Biggest weakness. I mean, obviously the goalkeeper could be one potentially. Marco Bizot from Ligue 1 as well. I can't remember the team. Was it Brest potentially? I can't remember. Obviously not as good as Emi Martinez. That goes without saying. As good as he could be, he's not Emi Martinez. So that could be a weakness, but I've not seen enough of him to know that for sure. He might be brilliant. Who knows? I think of the players that we know about that are still there, pace potentially, going from a defensive point of view. If it is Luka Dean, he's not as quick as Alanga. Not many players are. Pau Torres, his physicality can come under question a lot of the time as well. Again, a ball over the top. If he fluffs the headed clearance and Gordon finds himself in on goal to a player playing in goal for his Premier League debut, that scares me. I don't like to dig him out, but probably Matty Cash as well. I think most Villa fans would suggest that we could probably upgrade on him now for about 5 transfer windows. Yet he's still here, and I think he might even end up getting a new contract. And I kind of flip between, as a fan, I think, can we improve there? Yeah. Can we actually with PSR? Actually, probably not. No. But Unai Emery, this coach that we kind of rave about and say, build a statue and blah, blah, blah. Well, he keeps picking him. And he has had several transfer windows to potentially replace him and hasn't. And if he offers him a new contract, he rates him and wants him, and he will play at right back and start games. So I kind of think, well, if I'm sitting here saying I trust Emery implicitly, I can't then go, yeah, but Matty Cash is crap. Like, I have to kind of be on board with, if that's what Emery wants, I do as well. But Cash, I do think is a bit of a weak link. So I think it's those wide fallback areas for me.
It's amazing, isn't it, when you have a manager like that? Because I can say this similar thing about Eddie Howe and Jacob Ramsey. Is that a signing which excites me, or I think is right for Newcastle at this point in time? Not necessarily, but I go to what you've kind of just said there about Emery, is that I trust Eddie Howe.
Yeah,
And
it's just kind of like boring for a podcast perspective, isn't it? 'Cause you don't really give your opinion. But you can't sit there and go, I trust Eddie Howe 100%, and then question the Jacob Ramsey signing because your manager wants him and has wanted him for a long time. So you have to kind of wait and see, I guess.
Good old credit in the bank.
Yeah. Is that your League Cup winners medal, by the way, you've got around your neck?
It's it's the lanyard which had the press pass on. The press pass is at home. But I lost my good old Reach lanyard, so here it is with my good old
little
pass
flex
on.
there. Yeah.
And Carabao got a nice little sponsor alongside our actual sponsors, NORD VPN. Hit the link in the podcast description box to take advantage of a very exclusive discounted offer on your NORD VPN plan. There's no risk with NORD's 30-day money-back guarantee. A host of benefits to be had. One subscription can be used across 10 devices. And if you are off on holiday and you have your relevant subscriptions to TNT Sports or Sky Sports, you can click to change your location, say if you're holiday in sunny Spain or Italy, back to the UK. And it means you can watch Saturday's game via your NordVPN subscription on your phone, on your tablet, wherever, and keep up to date with the match. What's not to love? So click the link in the podcast description box to take advantage of an exclusive offer. Dan, come on then.
Smooth that, we didn't even plan that little ad read. That was good, that.
We're naturals at it. That's why Nord love us.
Score prediction. I think Villa will win. I've got to come on here and back Villa to win. Of course I do. It'd be madness if I didn't. We have talked about the record that we're good at home in this fixture, and I think there'll be goals. So 3-1 Villa, Watkins brace, if you want to be specific.
Oof. Right. Okay. I might make some changes in my fantasy football team. I've gone for a draw, more led by my heart than my head. I'd take a draw now if it was offered. But I go back to the point I've been making throughout. I do genuinely think the last few days will play a massive part in focusing Newcastle and lifting the spirit. And could it be a cheeky little surprising win? I mean, if Newcastle do win, it'll not be by many goals. It'll be 1-0 or 2-1 here. But I'm going to stick with a draw. I'm going to stick with a draw. I'm going to 1-1 draw. Although I am fully prepared for Aston Villa to run riot and start the season in good fashion. But
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I wouldn't be madly against a draw, by the way. Like, I don't think it's a terrible result, but we're at home. It's the first day. Like, if you can win, you set yourself up really nicely.
Yeah. I mean, as long as you avoid defeat, I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, is it? And then we can, all throw it back to the Premier League and say, well, look, it's PSR. That's the underlying reason for this draw. Because you didn't let us strengthen the way we wanted to.
Yeah.
But that's probably a topic for another.
We could do a whole another half an hour on that.
We could do a whole week on it, to be honest with you. Yeah. But first, we've got to get Jacob Ramsey out of the way, and you'll be back on next week with your revised view on it that it is the best signing Newcastle ever made. So I look forward to that, as I'm sure our listeners do as well. Thank you very much to Dan for popping onto the podcast. Like I say, he will be back in the next few days. Thank you to you guys for watching and listening. Hopefully Newcastle do pick up a victory and start the campaign as they mean to go on. Hit like, hit thumbs up, hit subscribe, leave us a rating and review, get into the comments as well. And I will see you guys very soon.